Hi everyone, in this video we're going to look at the most common picking mistakes and how you can avoid making them. Stick around to the end because the last mistake is one made by even experienced players. First of all, make sure you use a fairly rigid pick for picking. If you're strumming, you can use the softer pick, but what we don't want to do when we're picking is have to keep waiting for the pick to rebound. So use something around the 1mm mark. The next point is how we hold the pick. Now there's so many different players holding the pick in different ways. I can't really argue that there's only one way to do it. But for the vast majority of people, it works best to hold the pick between your thumb and your first finger. Try not to let the second finger help. Now notice when I do this, I'm not holding the pick with the fleshy part of my finger, but the side of my finger. And I've got very little pick showing. That gives me more control. Your picking hand should be resting somewhere. It's okay to lift it off the body when strumming or finger picking, otherwise keep it resting on or near the bridge. You can rest with the squidgy muscle here, the thumb muscle. You can rest with this part of the hand here, or even the gap between those two muscles. There is some wiggle room here depending on what works for you and how you're picking. For example, if I'm leaning my pick down like this, I might rest on this part of my hand. And if I'm maybe leaning this way, I might rest on the fleshy part of the thumb muscle here. So resting gives us a pivot point and a point of reference, so we no longer have to look at this hand. Above all, it gives us stability and control. Much like when you write on a piece of paper, you don't have your hand in the air, you have it resting. There are exceptions to this, like when Eddie Van Halen would occasionally lift his hand away and do a kind of tremolo picking thing in the air, almost like strumming a string. It's also okay to rest your fingers like this, provided it doesn't interfere with any of the other rules we'll be looking at. For example, you don't want having your fingers here to stop you from muting unwanted string noise. Also, you don't want it to hinder the movement of your pick. What I sometimes do is I rest my fingers here, but I allow them to sort of move with my hand like this. Your hand and arm should be in a straight line and remain consistently like this. If you're playing across several strings, you don't want to end up like this. It's not only uncomfortable, but it gives you a different angle of attack on each string. So you want to remain consistent like this. Now my wrist is doing the motion, the picking motion, but my hand is repositioning my wrist. Think of the bridge as a kind of track that I'm following. So I'm staying on or near the bridge at all times, keeping a straight line between my arm and my hand. People often spend too long in contact with a string. They sort of push the string and then let go, especially beginners. We're not trying to launch an arrow off the string here. Instead of pushing the string and letting go, imagine this is the string looking down the end. Just come from here and just clip the string with as little pick as you can get away with. Another advantage of having our hand resting here is we can quickly mute strings. Palm muting is where we rest on the strings right here, just where they leave the bridge. So instead of getting this sound, we get this sound. You'll know if you're doing this too much. If your hand's too far forward, you'll get a completely dead sound with no pitch. If you're too far back, you'll get just a normal ringing sound. We want this kind of muted, unmuted, muted, unmuted. I can do that like this, muted, and roll my hand away to unmute. And of course we can mute unwanted string noise. When I play across several strings, my hand rests on the previously played strings, thus muting them. So for example, if I play a pentatonic scale, I play the E string, and then I rest on that string when I go to play the A string. When I come back, my left hand is actually helping. It's slightly leaning on the previous string I played to choke that note. Avoid always picking everything in one direction. This is more of a problem for beginners where they do everything with downs or everything with ups. Sometimes we want to do different techniques like alternate picking, sweep picking and economy picking. That's too much to cover in this video, but if you want to find out more, check out my book, which is called Essential Guitar Techniques. I'll put a link in the description. For now, as a general rule, but not a fundamental one, try to pick towards your next note. For example, if I arpeggiate a chord of C, this. I'm picking in the direction I'm about to go in. So for example, I'll play 3 downs and then I'll start with an upstroke and play 3 ups. And that means my pick is always kind of going in the right way. course, we want to develop alternate picking as our kind of go-to technique. And I'll put some exercises at the end of this video to help make this hand more autonomous, so it will do it for you. Finally, and this is the advanced thing, people often forget to do pick slanting. That's where the pick slightly leans. Very rarely is my pick completely at 90 degrees to the strings. Sometimes it is, but here's the problem. Let's imagine I'm playing an A minor pentatonic scale, pattern 1, and I start with a downstroke, so I go down, then up. If I'm leaning backwards like this, what can happen is I can go down, up, and now my string is trapped here on this side of the E string, and I need to go to the A string, which means I have to hop over the E string. It's better to lean the pick down slightly, play down, up, and my pick has cleared the string. I can now go straight to the A string, and again I've cleared. Conversely, if I start with an upstroke like this, I don't want to lean down because I'll end up trapped between the A and the E string, when my next pick stroke should be an up. So what I could do is lean backwards, and I've cleared the string. Some guitarists have a preference for leaning down. They even engineer their licks and riffs to accommodate that. This is a very personal thing, and every guitarist has a different slanting preference. Troy Grady has done tons of videos on this that are worth checking out. Above all, we just want to avoid this kind of hopping motion where we get trapped between the strings. Hopping is okay if we're playing slow, in which case I find my picking hand has some funny little nuances anyway, and that's absolutely fine. It's kind of part of the sound. But when you get faster, you want a very strict, consistent picking action. The following exercises give you some warm-ups to help you get used to alternate picking and hopefully automate this hand so you won't have to worry about what it's doing. The first one looks like this. It starts with a downstroke, and I play on the A string 5 then 7, same on the D string, same on the G, back to the D, 5 and 7. All the time my right hand is going down then up. I'm going to have to lean down as well so that I'm clearing the strings at all times. If you find it uncomfortable down there, you can play this higher up. And once you've got the hang of that, it's a good idea not to get too attached to one mode of picking. You can actually do the same thing starting with an up. So I'm going to lean my hand up, not too far, but just a slight lean, starting with an up, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. The next exercise is the reverse of the previous one. We're going to go 7-5, starting with a down, 7-5, 7-5, 7-5, 7-5, 7-5 on the G, same on the D, same on the A string, back to the D. So I've got this down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. I'm starting with a downstroke, leaning down. And again, reverse that. You can start with an upstroke. The next exercise is going to help you to not do this motion we talked about. It's going to give you consistency across the strings. And this is basically a string skipping exercise. Pentatonic pattern 1 in A minor. I play the E string down, up, skip to the D string, come back to the string we missed, the A string, skip to the G string, come back to the one we missed, the D string, skip a string, go to the B string, come back to the G string that we missed, skip to the top E, so we've got, and reverse this, E string, G string, B string, D string, G string, A string, D string, E string. It's a good idea to practice exercises as difficult as this with a metronome. So this is set to 100 beats a minute. I'm going to play quavers, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I could then speed up to semi-quavers once I get more advanced. 1 E-ender, 2 E-ender, 3 E-ender, 4 E-ender, 1 E-ender, 2 E-ender, 3 E-ender, 4 E-ender. Final exercise is a warm-up you can do to help you change strings and change your picking slant ever so slightly depending on what is required to clear the strings and not get trapped between them. It looks like this. And loop and go around again. So what I'm doing is I'm starting with a downstroke. I'm going down on the 10, up on the 12, down on the 13 of the B string. On the top E I go up on 10, down on 11, up on 10, and then return the way I came, 13, 12, 10 on the B. Okay, and I keep doing that, but every time I get to the E string, I change the highest note. So I get 11, 12, 13, 12, and loop. Thanks for watching. I hope that video was useful to you. If so, please click like and subscribe. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.